Hi. It's, oops, didn't do all the stupid things.
Oh.
Stupid,
Oh dear.
Stupid Zoom. Is anyone else having COVID Zoom fatigue?
Oh, I had COVID Zoom fatigue way back in October. So
I'm over that.
I've gone past the Zoom fatigue to like acceptance.
Volume. Yeah. Jeez, you hate it. Okay. Hi. I'm wearing my Viva la Resistance written pants for Dr. Redlener today because that's our new resistance is against vaccine resistance. Viva la Resistance. Oh. Travis, send Chris the USA Today article. There's a very helpful article. I know it's the McPaper, but how to talk to your loved ones that don't want to get vaccinated. Because as you know, I will remain bad cop, but y'all can learn how to be good cop and talk respectfully and kindly to your friends that don't want to get vaccinated. Okay, I just use.
Do you do that?
I try not to.
What?
I just don't associate with those people.
See, well, you are not helpful. You are not being a liberal helper.
I don't need those kinds of people in my life. That's sorry.
Well, it's actually a good piece. Dr. Redlener writes about that. That's our next big challenge. Is we're like 2 weeks away from hitting a wall of like people that everybody. I mean, Biden is doing such a great job. Here he is yesterday. He's doing such a great job. Yesterday we have hit. Here we go.
When tomorrow's vaccine and vaccination numbers come out, it will show that today we did it. Today we hit 200 million shots in the 92nd day in office. 200 million shots in 100 days, in under 100 days, actually. It's an incredible achievement for the nation.
Yeah, of course, and he said for the nation, for science. He didn't take credit himself. He went on to say.
Right.
You know, at the pace we're moving when I took office, it would have taken us more than 220 days, almost 7 months, 7.5 months to reach 200 million shots. Instead of marking this milestone in April, we would not have seen it until early September at the earliest.
Yeah, and then finally?
This is an American achievement, a powerful demonstration of unity and resolve, what unity will do for us, and a reminder of what we can accomplish when we pull together as one people to a common goal.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I'm just saying, we can do this, right? Okay, I do realize I've done it. Okay, on the show, I'm bad cop, but I have brought at least 2 family members around, the right-wing ones, the Trumper ones, right? Yeah. Because my mom's in a nursing home. My brother asked all of us, oh, should we get mom vaccinated? It's like half the people there aren't going to get it. And we're like, yes! Yes! Get her. So
all the more reason.
Right. Exactly, Travis. But that's what I'm saying. You can use reason, right? That what we do have in common is we all love my mom. So I was like, yes, even more reason if there's staff and other residents that aren't getting it. Absolutely. So, you know the story. My mom tested positive, no symptoms. Now she's vaccinated. She's 98. She's, knock on wood.
She's a superwoman.
Hanging in there. Yeah. Chris, yeah. But then the other thing is, so it was closed forever, right? You couldn't go in. But then when my sisters got vaccinated, they were able to go in and see her, right? So I said to my brother, I'm like, see, if you get back, you can, right? But then for whatever reason, when they opened things up, they let him go anyway, even though he wasn't vaccinated. But again, even if you have political differences with people you love, I love him. And I was like, please don't go into a hot spot not vaccinated. That there's been a zillion deaths and, infections in my mom's nursing home. I'm like, please, I wouldn't do that. And so anyway, they finally started offering vaccinations there and he got vaccinated. But, he was one of those people who's just like, oh, who cares? Mom's vaccinated. If she's okay, I don't care about me. It's like, okay, if you don't care about, you know what I mean? There is a million different ways. But fortunately, when you do come from a place of love and I'm concerned about you, sometimes that does work. Like, please, if you're going to continually go in this hot spot, please get vaccinated, right? I mean, it's...
Does the article tell you what to do if they say that it's going to change your DNA and make you into a different race and you can't marry people anymore?
Okay,
now,
why do you
I did not hear that.
Say that? Why?
I don't I haven't talked to my anti-vaxxer friend. But I mean,
she's a different race now.
But here's the other thing. Like, again, I've come from a place where I love her, but honestly, that is a sad thing, is that I will never see her in person again unless she gets vaccinated. She's not coming to my house. I'm not going to risk, right, going out with someone that's not, because, again, there is more chance you're carrying it or going to give it to me or other people that I love, right? Anyway, I just think it's a way to come into the circle of love and the circle of trust. Won't you? Here, come. You're getting sleepier. Don't you want to have nice things again? See your grandkids, see your kids. Come in. So we got it. Posted a picture of yourself roaming, looking for a vaccine appointment. How is it going?
Yeah, not well. It's this process of refresh zip code fail, refresh zip code fail. That's my entire world right now. I have no idea what's going on with politics. I'm sorry, I can't talk about anything today because I'm so distracted by trying to get a vaccine. And I should say, in all seriousness,
I remember those days. I remember waiting in line for my roommate for Bruce Springsteen tickets when I had wicked menstrual cramps for hours. I remember those days. Concert tickets. I'm trying to.
Remember in the day there was a kind of a telephone that was a handheld telephone, and it had the redial, but it would still do the sort of the dial sound instead of the digital beeping sound. Yeah. So you'd redial, but it would still take as long as if you were actually dialing.
Right.
And we had one of those phones in our house growing up. And so I'd call for like Motley Crue tickets or something ridiculous and be doing that redial process, trying to get through to Ticketmaster to buy seats. And it occasionally worked, but it shouldn't be like that for vaccines.
Well,
it should be that way for Motley Crue.
Your incredibly smart, genetically superior girlfriend got an appointment, I see. She's going to be on Team Moderna.
Yes.
Kimberly got
she's much faster than I am on the redial front.
Well, she's a girl.
Has a whole system.
Boys are
Moderna.
Boys are dumb.
Oh God.
There you go.
What?
Boys are dumb. Throw rocks at them. Yes.
Once again, you've saved my psyche, Eric Bullard. On fire on Twitter. You just said there's only one story regarding gun violence in the U.S. The GOP opposes all attempts to fix the problem. Period. Right?
Yeah, that's what I just posted this morning. It's the only gun reform story that matters is GOP obstruction. Look, the press has gotten better kind of covering, these mass murders and not kind of shunning them away for 20 or 30 minutes, but they're not putting it in context. There's this feeling like there's just kind of this passive coverage, like we can't fix it, nothing will get done. Why can't we pass the laws? It's simple and easy why we can't pass the laws. It's the Republican Party. They have this just absolute obsession with protecting, not only protecting gun rights, but flooding the country with guns by loosening restrictions. You can carry a gun into grocery stores in half this country, and not just guns, assault weapons. Yeah. So they are the reason we have this epidemic. They are the reason the government can't do anything to fix this plague. But you see all these stories about how Congress doesn't do anything, how there's gridlock. Yeah. And the press just does not want to put a fine point on this, that the Republican Party is getting people killed every day in this country.
Is it history when it's only, I don't know how many years ago, but thank you for a little history lesson on Twitter. You said, reminder, Bill Clinton signed a bill that outlawed assault weapons in this country. It seems inconceivable today. George W. Bush let that ban expire. You said basically the rigged Florida recount in 2000 and the Supreme Court stopping the vote counting is why we have assault weapons plague in this country today. I mean, elections have consequences, as you say.
Yeah,
I mean, it's and now just real quick, your other one in terms of the press, you said in the wake of endless gun rampages in the last 3 weeks, how many Republicans block all gun reform headlines have you seen? And that should be the only headline. Yeah.
It should be absolutely the only headline. Look, I have kids who are 20 years old. It's inconceivable to them that assault weapons were ever banned in this country.
Yeah.
And we did it for 10 years. And guess what happened? We saw an impact and effect. And the other thing I point out in my column this morning, there's no context in terms of the Republicans' radical obstruction. In that crime bill, 42 House Republicans voted in favor of banning assault weapons in this country. Can you imagine today?
Yeah.
You can't get one. In 1999, something like 30 Republican senators voted for a background check bill, check bill. Inconceivable today. So, we have this idea, well, Republicans have always been opposed to gun safety laws. No, they haven't. This has been a radical change in 25 years, and all that context just gets evaporated when the press tries to cover this story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, boy, and it's almost like it's on every single issue. Thank you for just knocking them down one at a time. I just mentioned that Bill Barr was able to spin and just bury the Mueller report after what we've just learned. And you just said, reminder, the New York Times bought the Barr spin from day one and said the Mueller report gave Trump's reelection a boost. That was the journalism about that. When, I feel like for those, most of us, this was not shocking news. We know exactly what Manafort did with the polling data and why, right? It's just, I mean, it is like, as you said at the time, the way the media covered it was part of the problem, right?
Oh my gosh, that was, if you had to pick 5 low points of the entire Trump presidency in terms of the press coverage, the Mueller report has to be in the top 5, and specifically that 24 hours, there wasn't a single journalist who read the Mueller report. They all read this press release from Barr, and news organizations went with it. As I pointed out, New York Times said this is a big boost for Trump's reelection. They hadn't read a single page, and they were still buying into this idea. Well, of course, the Attorney General of the United States would never lie about something like the Russia investigation.
Yeah.
They still wouldn't accept this notion that everyone in the administration was a pathological liar. And so, by the time the press caught up with the truth of the Mueller report, 3, 5, 7 days later, it was too late. All those headlines, exonerated.
And where are they now, by the way? It's like this news cycle, this just happened Friday, and it's pretty huge, in my opinion, when it is proven now there was collusion and out and out treason with the president. It wasn't that long ago. It was 4 years ago. We can't just go, well, now that, I mean, it's okay. So anyway, but also this, Judd Legum, you retweeted. You said he said I don't remember hearing anything about cancel culture when the Dixie Chicks got kicked off country radio for opposing the Iraq War, and you said CDs were actually burned, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, and again, the press never asked what about this drift toward fascism and white supremacism and radicalism on the right. They always ask, it's insanity, right? How they just they gobble up the right-wing talking points on this stuff, right?
Right. We've talked about this so many times. What does every Beltway news cycle start with? Every morning, It's what are Republicans angry about? What are conservatives angry about?
Right.
So cancel culture takes off, right? That's a thing. That's sweeping the country. Fascism. Oh, you can't talk about fascism. There's not fascism in the United States. That's just, that's exaggerated rhetoric. Why would you talk about that? So it's always about
and they want to take away antitrust, protection from baseball. I mean, everything they do is cancel culture with companies they don't agree with on voter suppression laws. They're just like, now we're
and everything is transactional. They're very upfront about it, with Delta and Coke and these Georgia-based companies that are criticizing them. They're very upfront about it. If you criticize us, we're taking away your tax benefits. I mean, it's just that's cancel culture right there.
Are you tired of think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. We are radio of, for, and by we the working people. Check out our program at thericksmithshow.com.
Ellie, I hope this does not count as your listening to white people section of your week, because you tweeted, I'm going to listen to Eric Nelson, but fair warning, that will max out my listening to white people quotient for the day, likely the week, possibly the month.
Yeah, I tried to recover my listening to white people's strength, in part because, as you pointed out, we sent a helicopter to Mars.
Yes. Oh my God.
Once they can get Drizzly to do that, I'm going. That's what we need.
Okay. So I hate to, you only hurt the ones you love, but we talked about this a little before we got on here, but because, Maxine Waters said a thing, here he is, Eric Nelson.
I just don't know how this jury, it can really be said to be that they are free from the taint of this. And now that we have U.S. representatives threatening acts of violence in relation to this specific case, it's mind-boggling to me, John.
Oh, dear. Clutch.
Well, I'll give you that Congresswoman Waters may have given you something on appeal that may result in this whole trial being overturned.
Let me start by saying, okay, Ellie, first of all, she did not promote violence of any kind. She was talking about protests, but go ahead.
That conversation was two white people being like, oh my God, a black woman said something. The other white guy going, I know she did. Can you believe it? You might win just because a black woman spoke out. I mean, that was that conversation.
Yeah.
No, that is not grounds for appeal. No, that is not grounds for mistrial, but they're going to try it. I mean, I think one of the things that people have to steel themselves for is that even if we have a conviction in this trial, which is not something I'm counting on, but hoping for, but even if we have a conviction in this trial, it's not going to end there. The first thing that happens is that the Nelson is going to move for a mistrial and move to have the judge set it aside as a matter of law. I don't think Peter Cahill, who has not covered himself, the judge, I do not think he has covered himself in glory in his administration of this trial, but I do not think that he wants to be ground zero for white supremacy by setting aside the verdict. But absolutely they will appeal. The Chauvin people will appeal this to the superior courts in Minnesota, trying to get this case overturned. Yes, they're going to use whatever they can use to try to argue for a mistrial, to try to argue for an error in law in convicting this cop for murder, if that in fact happens. So this is not going to end, as Frederick Douglass might say. Power concedes nothing without demand, and in this case, white cops will not accept justice. They will fight and fight and fight to the last to escape accountability.
Ellie, I am briefly distracted from your very astute legal points by a child fleeing for its life behind you.
Back and forth.
Twice.
That is amazing.
Twice. Sir, what's happening over there?
His little brother is sick, not COVID. We got the test, not COVID, just regular
good.
Child sickness. And so he's playing nurse today. But he's 8. And so we gave him the power, which is the thermometer. So he's giving us hourly updates. This hour, his temperature is 97.4. I will update you next hour. Like,
Oh, how cute.
That's super
taking it
cute.
very seriously.
Okay. All right. You tweeted basically the only way the jury can acquit is if they fail to see Floyd as human. I agree with you. You said, you got a tough case when you as the defense attorney are showing videos where your client's victim says, "Mama, I love you," right before your client murders him. I mean, didn't he sum it all up to me, Ellie, when he said this was not policing, this was murder. And every single person in the police department, up to the chief, testified to that this was not policing. This was not their techniques. This was murder.
I don't know how they get away from this. I don't know how they get away from the 9 minutes and 29 seconds. One of the reasons why I think Eric Nelson, the defense attorney, is showing video. I mean, usually, and I'm not here to criticize defense attorneys, but usually you don't see a defense attorney show video of the victim crying out in pain and agony and asking for his mother before he is killed by your client. That's not the usual strategy here. I think part of why he's doing it is because this is what he's got. I mean, when you got a dog of the case, you're going to get some fleas. But the other part that's happening is that I think he's almost trying to desensitize the jury to the death that we saw, right? Like, at some point, if you see Floyd die over and over and over and over again, and you're for the last 4 weeks, at some point, do you become desensitized to the fact that a human being's life is being snuffed out in front of you, and start thinking of it almost like you're watching like a CGI, representation of life? And I think that's part of what's going on here. That's part of what must be going on in the jury deliberation room. Like, there's got to be some level of people who are over it by now, right? Who are used to the thought that Floyd was killed and are no longer kind of emotionally able to kind of grapple with that. I think that's part of what's got to be going on right now.
We pause to report that you will be getting a temperature check soon as the child has fled up the stairs behind you. Okay. When I'm listening to my Joy read, as I do every day, and she says, Ellie Stahl has written a very important piece in The Nation you must read. I was like, oh, that's my homework for tomorrow. Hang on. I got to go get that. That's me tomorrow. But Ellie, as you do, Mr. Fancy Harvard Law degree, you brought up something I've never heard of. But your piece was how the Supreme Court gave cops a license to kill. You said Chauvin's defense is so basic that an attorney straight out of law school could pull it off. His lawyers are simply arguing that cops have the right to kill people if they think they need to. The defense lawyers know that the law does not require Chauvin to behave like a human being. It only requires him to behave like a cop. It doesn't hold cops to an objective standard of behavior. Instead, the law allows an individual cop's own frailties, their fears, their racist misconceptions, even their own hysteria to define the scope of acceptable cop behavior. And so you mentioned Graham versus Connor, which of course I always learned something from you, but I had never heard of this. It changed the use of force guidelines for police all across the country, allowing them to be more violent and homicidal. And so explain this case, because you said in the actual case, the court found a reasonable officer could slam DeThorne Graham's head into a car and break his foot because Graham was resisting arrest. Never mind, he was diabetic going into shock, who was being detained on the suspicion that he stole some orange juice, which he did not. Oh my God. So that's the case that started all this?
So let's go back to first principles, right? Like, what actually protects us from the cops beating my ass? And it turns out that the only protection I have, constitutionally speaking, is the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment says you cannot, protects the citizens against the state's use of unreasonable search or seizure. Of course, the founding fathers did not define unreasonable because white colonists and slavers had a very different conception of reasonable than I did. For most of American history, unreasonable has been defined by the reasonable, in fairness, white man on the street. Like, what would you think is reasonable? And that's the standard, right? Graham v. Connor in 1989 changed the standard from a reasonable man to a reasonable cop.
Hi.
You know, your
You're
Instagram bicycle pictures are making me kind of hot. And it's bicycle day. See, this is my outdoor bike shirt day. Oh my God, you're so hot in your bike clothes. I want to bike nerd out with you. I wish we lived in the same place and we could ride all the time.
I know. Oh my God.
You haven't had sex in so long, lint makes you hot.
Yes.
So,
yes. But Bob Siska in bike clothes makes every woman hot. I'm just saying.
okay. All right.
See,
They're
like
so
looking at you.
handsome. They're you bicycling in Hawaii and all over the place. Oh my God.
Yeah. The photos are what I have instead of actual fitness. So that's, I mean, if I got on my bike today, there's no way. As I look back, I was, I don't know, 50, 60 pounds lighter than I am now, and I could actually ride a bike.
Oh.
And it's been so long. So I'm looking forward to getting back on my bike after I get vaccinated here. So
Stop.
that's,
you are a hot hunk of
right
man.
around the corner.
Just as you are. You and Chris, though, nerded out over your non-athletic exploits in high school. What was this about?
Yeah.
I posted that I got a letter in basketball managing, not basketball, basketball managing.
Okay.
So, I was so pleased. I was so happy to see that. I was so happy to see that because I thought I was the only one who got a varsity letter for doing something that was sports related, but not actually playing the sport. And I was the videographer for the varsity basketball team.
Oh, nerds.
And so I got a
nerds.
varsity letter for it. Yeah.
Scorekeeper,
Travis? Oh. You guys have always
but
been nerds.
You're actually tall enough to play basketball. Both of you
I am
are.
terrible. Look on Instagram.
Terrible.
Travis is the tallest person ever picked last for basketball.
Oh, I'm awful.
On Instagram, I posted on Instagram a video, or it's not a video, it's a home movie of myself when I was 6 years old trying to play basketball in the cul-de-sac in front of our house.
You
and
can't
it's so
dribble.
awful.
You can't dribble for. Oh my God.
That's exactly right. I was so desperate to get the basketball, so I grabbed it away from my brother, and then he got so angry, he took the basketball and chucked it across the street, and I went running like Babe Ruth across the street with little tiny fast steps, because it's a home movie. And then I grabbed the basketball and I try to dribble it, and I can't even do it. It goes behind my head.
You were totally a Washington General. I was like, oh, Bob.
Right.
You're the only person
really
that posts kid pictures, though, that you can pick you out in any picture. I'm like, it's just Bob's mini-me. It looks exactly like Bob, but just tiny.
Well, it's so weird because what I look like as a child is a very adorable Korean boy. And that's...
I look like an Armenian dude in high school. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Armenian.
Bob.
I was an Armenian in high school, yes.
Are we all just giddy? Are we all giddy from the amount of justice and karma that came down just in one day yesterday?
Absolutely. Yeah. That was an incredible occasion, that's for sure. And I was completely surprised. I was thrilled to be wrong about what the verdict was because I was going in thinking, because I explained to Buzz on my show yesterday that I've reached this low ebb of cynicism and skepticism and when it comes to my fellow Americans because of the last 4 years. So especially because of the last year in reaction to COVID, certainly all the votes for Donald Trump, et cetera. So I thought for sure, okay, we're in an idiocracy now. All of these ridiculous arguments by the defense they're all gonna land because we're populated by morons for the for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
And so that's where I was going in. And also I was thinking, well, everyone's proud to let their racist flag fly these days. Donald Trump made it okay to be racist and again. So I figured it's going to go badly in terms of justice. And I was immensely pleased to have been wrong on that front.
Was this not the longest 29 seconds of your life, though? This is the judge yesterday.
Members of the jury, I will now read the verdicts as they will appear in the permanent records of the 4th Judicial District. State of Minnesota, County of Hennepin. District Court, 4th Judicial District. State of Minnesota Plaintiff versus Derek Michael Chauvin, Defendant. Verdict, count 1. Court file number 27, CR 20.
Who cares?
12646. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 1, unintentional second-degree murder while committing a felony, find the defendant guilty.
No! Okay. And then cue Barada music. Then you heard the justice music in your head. You're like, oh, yes.